Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome to episode 3 of Under One Roof, and we just got some good news, in my opinion, that I would love to share with you guys. The Brooklyn Nets lost to Ben Simmons. Landon, welcome back to the show, and what can you tell me about this awesome event that just took place?
I feel like I'm a live reporter. This is great. Yeah, it was Ben Simmons' first return to the 76ers. I think it was the first time since like June of 2021. We all know the drama that happened with that. And the biggest part about the entire game, I didn't get to watch all of it, but I did watch part of it in bulk as we prepared for the show. Again, spent a good 50 minutes in the green room, if you want to call it the green room, just waiting and whatnot. By the way, I hate the fact that I have these bars back here. I don't know why that's there. Anyway, so big game. Most important fact is that for the 76ers, James Harden, Joel Embiid, and Tyrese Maxey all not playing. It is set up perfectly for the Nets. I think Kyrie's just returned. I don't know if it was his first or second game back. I think it was his first game back. Ben Simmons is playing in Philadelphia. All of the reasons for them to win the game, and they don't. It was 115 to 106. Kevin Durant put up 20 points. Kyrie 23. I'm looking for Ben Simmons' stats. 11, 11, and 7. Kind of typical and honestly slightly underwhelming, Kingdom. I don't know, man. Like, you can't be losing to the 76ers when literally their three best players are all gone. You have all the motivation in the world. I get it. Kyrie's back. You got to adjust to a few different things. But in terms of star talent, which I think is going to be the theme of this episode, that lacking on a lot of different teams lately, didn't do what you thought that they might do.
You know, it's interesting. I'm looking at the box score right now on my phone. Sorry for the viewing audience. That I
thought you were frozen. I'll be honest. I thought you were frozen.
You know, I mean, just because I'm old doesn't mean I'm frozen, man. Like,
that's not what I said at all. But go ahead.
I'm wondering. Oh, they just got outscored. Reed. How do you even say this guy's name? Niang.
You went George Niang.
George Niang. Yeah, scored 16. It looks like they just got beat by a better team all around, and I'm not mad at it. You know, of course I made it clear in the opening of the show. I just have not been the biggest Kevin Durant fan since he left OKC. I feel like he's one of those guys that could have stayed in that city and stayed playing for that team, and then they could have traded Westbrook, Harden, and everybody else, Ibaka, whoever they want, and they would have built a nice team around Kevin Durant, and he probably maybe would have won 1 or 2 championships. Who knows, you know, but I think what this bouncing around, and we talked about it last week, like complaining about his team, and it looks like he's backpedaled a little bit on that publicly, but like talking about his team and look at our starting lineup. What do you expect? Well, guess what? Kyrie's back and you didn't do any better. And I think you said that Joel Embiid was not even playing.
Neither was James Harden, and neither was Tyrese Maxey. So literally their three best player, which they have a stacked roster. Like, I'm not going to act as if like they didn't have anybody good playing. But
they're a great team. Yeah,
they are a very, very good team. It's just a little weird. But no, I agree on the Kevin Durant point, by the way. I know this is kind of like an instant reaction to the Nets versus 76ers game and stuff. But still, it's like, you know, it feels like he has really squandered. Like, if you're going to look back at Kevin Durant's career, right? And if he doesn't win another championship, let's say the Nets thing continues to go the way that it's going, you know, maybe they make it to the second round of the playoffs at best. But his current career trajectory does not say he's going to win another championship. And to be honest, the ones that he has won with Golden State, like, a lot of people already write those off to begin with. And for him to have been such an unbelievable scorer, one of the greatest scorers of all time, I mean, it feels like, I mean, what? I don't know if I'm talking too much about it, Kingdom, but like, there were serious years where people were comparing, you know, LeBron and KD. Who's better? I know that conversation has fizzled out, but like, that was the conversation that we had for years. Imagine if Kevin Durant had 3 championships, 4 championships, even a few just away from Golden State. I feel like he would be one of those guys that we're almost talking about like on Giannis levels at the moment. Like, don't get me wrong, is Kevin Durant a better player overall than Giannis right now? Yes. No question about it. However, the trajectory at which we're talking about Giannis, which is like, yeah, he could be a top 10 player of all time. That's the conversation that we had about Kevin Durant for such a long time. And it feels like with all of these decisions, you know, at a certain point, you have to take ownership for the decisions that you made, the teams that you went to. And like I said, it kind of speaks for itself. Like the the explosions of what has happened, going to the Warriors, being there for a while, not really liking how that ends up going over to the Nets. Feels like, while he's not maybe been in the primary leadership position, he's definitely been making decisions. And for the team to have been squandered, it almost feels like these last few years have been wasted, considering that they haven't really done a whole lot. This could be the tail end of Kevin Durant's career, where the best that we're talking is like, ooh, yeah, KD made it to the playoffs and he can still average 20, 25 points here or there. But that's not the way that we expected his career to go out 10, I mean, not even 10 years ago, like 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah, I would have to. So here's what I would say. If KD had 4 championships right now, same amount as Braun, I wouldn't even remotely put him in the GOAT conversation. Steph Curry has the same amount. I'm not putting him in the GOAT conversation. You know, there is something different about those players. You know, I watched a conversation where Steph was talking about how much fun it was to play against LeBron for 4 years in a row in the finals. And he said in the finals where they lost, it was like Braun and Kyrie. He's never seen 2 players play that well for 3 games in a row when they came back from the 3-1 deficit. And KD is just consistent. He's good. He's going to make some threes in your face. He's very hard to guard. LeBron has had to use a lot of external tactics, like taking care of his body and all this kind of stuff, in order to be the player that he's been for so freaking long. KD and Steph both had careers that weren't as glowing from day one. LeBron, day one. Even Steve Kerr was talking about the loss that the Warriors just experienced by 45, and mentioned, like, he was like, you know, our young guys just need some time to learn. I mean, unless you're LeBron James, like, you don't just step on the court and you know how to play the NBA game from day one. Especially without a lot of college. And LeBron is unique. Kobe is unique, but even Kobe had his struggles, you know, towards the beginning and end of his career. And I think the same thing with Giannis. I would slightly disagree. If I was starting a team today and I needed to pick one of the 2 of them, I'd pick Giannis and build around him. I think that Giannis allows you to basically stretch the crap out of the floor. He is unstoppable, indestructible. Even ladders can't stop Giannis.
That's true.
Those of you that saw the clip of Giannis literally shoving a ladder out of the way, after going in the background and getting into the locker room and getting a basketball, came back out on the floor after losing a game because he missed so many free throws and shoved a ladder out of the way that a worker was holding so he could put some more free throws in. Like, Giannis is dedicated to the game, and I love it. And it's like some of the stuff I hear from KD, like, I don't know the behind the scenes, right? I don't know how hard of a worker he is. But, you know, something I'll just say, Landon, is like, you know, it's from one of my favorite movies, Remember the Titans, you know?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Attitude reflects leadership, right? And so, like, realistically for KD, and this is the same thing I have for the Warriors, you know, but realistically for KD, like, to come out and look at your teammates and be like, our teammates aren't doing anything. We're not practicing enough. We're not playing as many drills. We're not, like, dude, take over, take charge. You're the best scorer on your team. Not even close. You're the only superstar. Like, because Kyrie's in and out of the game and he's non-reliable. Like, come on, man. Like, step up and take control, lead. And that's just something that Kevin Durant has not, in my opinion, been able to do throughout his career. Interestingly enough, on the other side of things, on the Call of Duty side, there is another person who actually has in the past seemed like he made really good decisions, was a good leader, owns his own org now, one of the most known and recognized across multiple esports, won a world championship last year and Major 4, and that's Matthew Nadeshot Haig. And he had some interesting comments of late. He came out on, I believe it was the Courage and Nadeshot show, and spoke really honestly about why he retired from competitive COD. And one of his many reasons, and I really would love your feedback on this one, Landon, is that he felt unrecognized from what he did for the Dynasty. And every time someone mentions the Dynasty, they leave out Nadeshot.
Yeah, and this is something that I actually made a YouTube video on. And if anybody is interested for a more in-depth conversation, you can check that out. But, like, It is something that I definitely agree with. Like, as I was watching, I actually watched the esports clip before watching the full thing on the Courage and Nadeshot show. But then I highly suggest that you do watch the entire thing. I think it was with It's Timmy that they signed to 100 Thieves and whatnot. But regardless, though, like, what he's saying is accurate. Like, whenever we do think about the Dynasty, we don't think about Nade. Like, I legitimately, whenever he was bringing that up, was like, oh yeah, like, I did forget that, like, Nade is a part of that. Like, I think of Nade and OPTIC in the early days and Black Ops 2 and Ghosts in those years. And it's almost like the start of Advanced Warfare. We're like, oh yeah, there was that little gray period, and then Karma was added to the roster. And I brought up for a few different reasons why I did feel like that was the case. I think the reason why we do forget about him on the Dynasty is for a multitude of different reasons, but one of them is obviously because of the way that it ended. Like Advanced Warfare ended at Champs with them starting off really well. Then they go on, they finish 7th. They get dominated in one of their final games versus FaZe Red that not a whole lot of people remember. Then he ends up, leaving the team. We also think that his retirement isn't actually a retirement, by the way. At the time, he said he's taking a leave from the team. We thought, okay, well, maybe he goes to OPTIC Nation. Maybe if this team doesn't work out, we see him return. Maybe he's just taking a break for a little while. Who really knows? And then he decides to move over to LA, and then he's kind of off the beaten path for a little while. Like, we don't really hear about him until he starts bringing up this 100 Thieves organization in Black Ops 3. Which would be the following season and whatnot. And like, not a whole lot of people knew what was going on there. So there's a few different reasons why I feel like that time period of like the end of AW Champs and when Karma gets added and we don't really see a whole lot of Nate at the time, it definitely kind of fits. But no, I definitely agree. I feel like, I think I calculated it. Nadeshot won 3 out of the 18 events that the OPTIC Dynasty won. So if we're talking about credit, I think that he deserves to have 3 out of the 18 of those victories. However, the formation of the OPTIC Dynasty, I think, does not get recognized the way that it should. Considering the fact that we all remember this. I know, Kingdom, this was a very hot topic on your channel back at the time about, Scump left the team, right? There was a big problem with he and Nate at the time. Nate ultimately makes a decision on whether or not Scump comes back to the roster. So within a 6-month period, OPTIC very well may have not had Scump, Formal, or Crim6, but because of Nade, Scump gets added back to the roster. And because of Scump being there, also because of what Nade had done when it comes down to that team in general, right? The way that he was able to grow his social presence, make that the home for, or basically making that team a roster that could house a roster like that, he also gets credit for. And then also his replacement in Karma. I think as well, you have to give props to Nade because he was, and understandably so, willing to fall on the sword to be that objective player. And I think we all knew that he was going to be coming into that team. But, I mentioned this in the video as well, if Karma starts off, right, he goes instantly from the Cole/EG situation in Ghost, he instantly pops onto this OPTIC roster in Advanced Warfare. I don't know if that team sticks, but I feel like because of what Nade did to solidify that role of like, hey, you're going to come into this team and you're going to be the OBJ and you're going to let these guys do what they need to do. It actually helped the fact that there was already kind of a dent, if you will, in the OPTIC team that allowed for Karma to slip into it. So not only did he house it, not only did he start, or kind of allow for the team to exist in this location, but he also helped set the precedence, set the role that Karma would later fill in.
This is all a very unfortunate and inconveniently true statement from Nadeshot.
Yeah.
And here's the deal. Hector and Seth, because this is who everybody's going to defend when they hear anything about anything OPTIC. They're going to throw green bricks at you. Hector and Seth have nothing to do with the perspective that everyone has that Nadeshot didn't have much to do with the Dynasty. And this is a lot of people that have came into our esport after Nadeshot left, and all they know is Scumpy. All they know is Hector. All they know is Formal. All they know is Dashy. They don't know the OPTIC of old. They don't know that Nadeshot was the first gamer to have a Red Bull sponsorship, and he was America's favorite gamer. What made me, in my opinion, I guess what helped me figure out that doing any of this was necessary, talking about esports, was I made a video called OPTIC Nadeshot, What's His Secret? It's probably my 3rd most watched video now, behind a Scump video, haha, and a mobile gaming video. But it's like the video on Nadeshot was because I was just what the heck is up? How is this guy so amazing? How does he get so many more views than everybody else? Because this was back in the day when, and I remember talking about it in the video, Proofy had on his stream 1,000 people watching. Nadeshot turned his stream on. I went over to Nadeshot's stream. Nadeshot climbed up to 4 or 5K. And this is back in the day when you didn't have that many viewers. I go back over to Proofy and he's down to like 200 viewers. Like Nadeshot was just the man, and everyone wanted to watch him play Call of Duty. He was a phenomenal search and destroy player. He made the decision. We all have seen the picture. We remember the day it was tweeted and posted when it was Nade and Scump and Karma and Crim and Formal sitting. Oh my gosh, you brought up the video, bro. I cannot believe
Look at this.
I'm happy. Those of you guys that are not watching this, thank you. I'm so happy that you're not watching. How many
9 years
views
ago was this video? 9.
I can't see the views on it. It's like 200K. Yeah, man. I've been at it for a long time, bro. 202K. GG's. Look at my 4.3 million total views on my channel. I feel proud of myself. So like, you know, at the end of the day, like honestly, Nadeshot was the guy. Like, he helped put this together. Like, let's make no mistake about it. He fell on the sword. He backed away from the team so that Scumpy would come back, so that Scumpy wouldn't leave. There's no blood, no foul, you know. I will say this. I can't say who. It was leaked to me way before 100 Thieves came out that it was coming. And that it was not only coming, but that it was going to be big. And I'm going to be blatantly honest. I was like, 100 Thieves? Like, really? Someone's going to root for that team? And now I'm, you know, putting my foot in my mouth because there's thousands and thousands, if not millions of people rooting for 100 Thieves. And I got to tip the hat to Nadeshot. I'm, I guess, proud of him for letting this kind of stuff out. Kind of interesting that a lot of stuff is, I don't know if you noticed this, Landon, a lot of stuff is seeping out into the, like, into the news cycle from people talking about old stuff. You got Shotzi this week talking about Crim, and like there's people just bringing up old stuff. And Nadeshot's right. He doesn't get any credit for that dynasty. You know, like when we think about dynasties, we think about Impact, we think about OPTIC, but not Nadeshot. We think about Crim 6 and EG and Cole, and we just don't. And we think of maybe about FaZe. You know, me and Nameless could debate that till the end of life, because I think getting second all year, sorry, bro, not dynasty anymore. But like, and they broke up. So like, I honestly feel like Nadeshot doesn't get the props he deserves for building that team, but also for building OPTIC Gaming. Like, let's not act like you could have just had Scumpy and Hector and it would have been fine. You needed Nadeshot, you know, like you needed him in there in order to grow this team into what it became. And it was Nadeshot and Scump that were both uploading pub gameplay and competitive gameplay, and then on Black Ops 2 league play like crazy. It was both of them that made OPTIC get the eyeballs that it got. And there is no person, I tweeted this in response to this whole thing, there is no person in the history of competitive Call of Duty that has made more as a retired player than OPTIC Nadeshot.
No, not at
now LA Thieves Nadeshot, or 100 Thieves Nadeshot, whatever you want to call them. Nobody's made more of their career and made more off of it. And guess what? Scump's not going to, unless he builds his own org, which probably won't happen. So like, Nadeshot has built a multi-million-dollar business. Probably at the end of the day will be a billion-dollar business off of being a Call of Duty player.
And this kind of gets me back to like another conversation. I know we started talking about like, you know, Nade's kind of history and, you know, the way that he built up OPTIC, now the way that he's built up 100 Thieves, and now the LA Thieves, you're a franchise in the CDL. One thing that I also want to do, and I don't want to talk too specifically about COD for sports fans and things like that. However, it works differently. Like, you can't compare a KD necessarily to like points per game in basketball. It doesn't fully translate the way that it should. And I want to bring up these stats. I know I think our producer has the numbers. So this is interesting. I don't know if you've seen this or not, Kingdom. I don't know if you've watched this portion of the video that I had made. Have you seen this stat before? I
believe so.
Okay. So I'm not going to ask you then. However, what is interesting is that what I went to look at, because everybody, you know, criticized the reason why Nade felt so pressurized was because of his numbers. The community was outraged by the KDs that he had. And so what I did is I compared Champs 2015 to Major 1 from this year. And it's identical. And this is, the results on the left are a 7th place finish. The results on the right are a 1st place title at Major 1 this season. So it's interesting because, like I said, not only are the KDs the same, yet they're two totally different results. But you look at Nadeshot, who had a .96 KD, horrible, but yet a .99 from Shotzi of all people, yet he had a high impact when it comes down to what they were able to do at that tournament. I understand the numbers aren't perfect, but those are very close. And so if we're identifying and saying, well, look at, Scump, who dropped a 1.3, and look at Nate, a 0.96. Well, you can say the exact same thing about Dashy in comparison to Shotzi, yet now we're correctly realizing, I feel like at this point, now that the franchising has happened, now that we're much older as a community, we're starting to recognize that KDs aren't everything. And just because a player has a 0.95 KD or a 0.96 KD doesn't mean they're bad. In fact, it actually may mean that they're the most impactful player on the map. And so that's what I've really liked. It feels like we're really starting to give players their proper respect. No, don't get me wrong. If a player is dropping like a 0.85 consistently and the team is not winning and there's constant moments where that player isn't playing well, there are definitely moments for it. However, KDs do not work the same way that like points do in sports. It's really not the case. It's a matter of one player does the right play that affects everybody. It's almost as if every time that LeBron scored, everybody gets a half of a point. Like that's really the way that it works when we talk about KDs. And I feel like it ultimately adds up to a much bigger conversation about stats, the way that we process stats. And it's something that really, I think us as the CDL, me as a caster, I think that we all need to be better about is not always highlighting KDs. I think that our stats guy, Carson, who by the way, just got a job at Seattle Surge as an analyst this season, couldn't be happier for him. He did a fantastic job and really set the standard, I feel like, when it comes down to stats for what we had last year, where we were talking about all kinds of numbers, breaking things down, properly highlighting not just who has the highest KD, which don't get me wrong, that is definitely something to highlight. But when we start talking about, the difference between a 0.95 and a 1.03, for example, it's not as if those are night and day different. In fact, it could just be two totally different roles. So I think it really leads us to a bigger conversation, which is always the scapegoat. And obviously when you're playing on the most popular team in the world, and you're pretty well identified as someone who's by no means the best player on the team, it is very easy for a misleading stat or a stat that doesn't tell the whole story to negatively impact said player. So,
well, and one of the cool things is, Sethy Seth, top 2 on both of those lists at both, on both rosters. And, KDs aren't everything. And that's why some KDs leave the Warriors. Speaking of the Warriors.
Nice transition. I like that. It hurt
that
a little bit, but I'll take it.
It did. It was great. I'm proud of myself for that one. So, last 2 games, Warriors. Curious, Landon, how you feel about the team. Really good game from Clay. Clay said in an interview, like, yo, I'm back. You're going to see more of this. And then he sits out. Like, I'm just like, come on. You guys gave us a taste. And then you just put him on the bench. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, so it's weird. It really is weird. Like, the question really is, like, do we right now feel better about the Warriors considering the last 2 games? And if you summarize the last 2 games, it was a good win versus the Rockets, right? A 7-point victory. As you said, Clay goes for 10 3-pointers, 41 points. Looked excellent. Everyone's like, okay, finally, there was someone who was showing some help. Maybe Clay, it took him a few games to really get going. And then I believe it was a decision. I think it might have been a team decision by like Steve Kerr to actually sit out all of the starters. So not one starter played versus the Pelicans, I think, as of yesterday of the recording of this video. And as you'd expect, they end up losing to a really good Pelicans team. It was a 40-point loss. And I don't know,
45.
like, I find myself, it was 83 to 128. Not a good result. However, your entire starting lineup is not playing. And based off of what we talked about, Kingdom, a lineup that actually plays a decent amount, aka the Warriors bench, this is a chance. Like, we can clearly tell what this was, right? It's like, hey, the starters have been putting in all of the work. Let's give these guys some rest. The younger group of players who have been horrific so far, now it's their opportunity. Let's see how these guys step up. Let's see who plays well. Let's maybe identify, have a full game, actually see where these guys are. Maybe with more minutes, they start to come into their own. I think Poole dropped 26. Like Jonathan Kuminga went for 18.
Boo.
But for 2 quarters, I think it was the first and the fourth quarter, 18 points or less. 18 points, I think, in the fourth quarter, 16 points in the first quarter. Not that we expected like an unbelievable result. Like, you don't expect them to win this game. but I don't know if I feel better. I don't know if I even feel the same way or if I feel worse. Like, I don't really know the reaction because it's such a weird thing to do. Is it a good thing to do? We could also debate that. I think that it personally was, but I leave feeling very questioned after the secondary for the Warriors ended up playing. I almost want to see them play again, honestly, just to see what would happen.
I don't. I would not like to see them play again. This is a team that started 24-0 in 2016. You know, like, and like it was funny because Steph was in an interview with JJ Redick and he talked about that and was like, "Yeah, I can't imagine that 4 games from now we were undefeated and as bad as we're doing right now." You know, and he said that they had a swag and they had a, you know, he said it was like screw you to the rest of the league.
Yeah.
This is not that team. And you just told me a second, I think earlier in the show, that the 3 best players on the Sixers weren't in the game and they beat the Brooklyn Nets. They beat Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And they're
and Ben Simmons, by the way. Can't forget him.
So if you would have taken out Steph, Clay, and Wiggins, I guess.
Yeah.
I think they would have just maybe lost by 35 instead of 45. Like, honestly, that may sound mean to Draymond, you know, but it's like, honestly, this team is just cumulatively not good right now. And they only won by 7 with Clay scoring 41.
Yeah.
Clay steps up and backs up Steph, and they won by 7 points. This wasn't a blowout. This was a 7-point win. And you know NBA basketball, that means that it came down to like scoring back and forth.
Yeah.
Like, you got to win by like 10 or more to feel like you actually like you beat a team pretty well and handedly. Like, but when you beat a team by 45, I don't care if their starters are on the bench. You're like, yeah, we beat them. And the Pelicans are a good team. Like,
no, they are.
Let's not act like the Pelicans aren't a good team. So for me, I'm still worried about the Warriors. I do not know how in the world this is supposed to be helpful. I love Steve Kerr. I think he's a great coach. This is the most frazzled and shaken I've ever seen him look, if I'm honest. Like, I see him in interviews. I see Kerr talking after the games, and I think he's trying to figure it out. And it sounds like you're going to give me a reason why you think this was a good idea. But as I look at this, I'm like, I don't think they use this to figure out who's going to step up and play. Like Kuminga and Poole, I would have said those are your best 2 next guys, you know? And so, like, it's weird for me and probably disheartening for these bench players. I don't know if it was supposed to be motivational. I don't know if it was like, you know what? You guys say you're better than the starters and you're getting bad flack because they're here you go. Have a full game. Let's see. Oh, you lost by 45. How do you even go in the locker room after that? You know, and it was good, I will say, to see Steph Curry on the sidelines playing coach in this game and actually trying to like help these guys the whole game. He's up there like, okay, you can maybe, and somebody made a joke. I was watching, you know, a podcast or something. They made a joke. They were like, yeah, Steph won't be coaching again because it didn't work out.
So I know we've been a 40-point loss.
I know we've been on this for a minute, but curious, like, what would be the motivation? This is like taking if you had a really poor performing challengers team and you were let's say a roster in the league and you put them up for a series against Atlanta FaZe. Like, I don't know the lesson that was supposed to be gained from this. So I'm kind of curious, like, it's a back-to-back. They want to rest their starters. That makes sense.
This is the way that I look at it, right? I'm not necessarily saying that, like, is this a good move for the players themselves? What I think it's a good move on is that it is a good move for the Warriors, right? To obviously just to bench your starting unit after what has been a very, very rough last few weeks. Like, Steph's having to drop 50, Clay's having to drop 41 for them just to be competitive. Sometimes to lose games still, sometimes to win games just barely, as we said, versus the Rockets. So I like the fact that we're resting the starters because I feel like that's not a bad thing to do. I actually like, we've seen that happen from Greg Popovich in the past or with the Spurs. People have always hated on the fact, no, it's not a good idea. I think for a older Warriors team, it's actually not a bad idea. I also think it's not a bad idea, again, because we have such a, like, it's a weird situation, right? It's not as if the Warriors secondary of players is a bunch of bums. Like, they're playing like that, but with the list that you have, we came into this season talking about how this is going to be one of the most deep teams in the league. All of these young players are supposed to pan out. The fact that they have not is such a weird situation that I don't mind Steve Kerr handling a weird situation in an also weird way. I also don't mind it either, because I think that they are basically putting these players in this position to literally figure out who are we keeping and who are we getting rid of. That ultimately is actually why I do like this. I'm not saying that it's a good move for the players, because obviously they just realized, hey, we started and we lost by 40 points. I don't know if you take that as a moral victory. I definitely would not. But I think for the organization themselves, it's a good decision, because you reaffirmed, I feel like, what you already knew. And sometimes you need some better clarification before you do make a major decision. So that's the reason why I liked this. I felt like it was a turning of the page type of moment to be like, okay, starters are going to rest. And honestly, if they are going to make a move, you know, let's say that players do start to get brought up in trade conversations, I don't know if you necessarily are wanting to play your bench players as often, which may mean that the starters need to have more minutes. So I just think from all accords, you're in a corner when we talk about chess. Like, you're in a corner, but you're making the right move at the time, even though based off the board you look like you're in a horrible spot. It's the move that you have to make, and I feel like it actually is a move that could see benefits in the future long term. It was the definition of a chess move, rather than, hey, let's just play our starters and just see what happens and just continue to rely on a bench that for some reason does not work, and for some reason isn't playing well, and for some reason all of these guys that we thought were going to be great are not, and some of them are even going to the G League, for God's sake. Like, something needs to be solved. So I don't hate this move when it comes down to all sides, I guess is the way that I would describe it. But I think we do need to move on, Kingdom. I think we've
no, for sure.
I'm not gonna lie, the Warriors thing is kind of frustrating me a little bit, because I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't understand how their bench is so bad. I don't understand. Like, I had such high stock in Wiseman, and now he's in the G League, and people are saying that he just doesn't know how to play anymore. How does that happen? I know that you haven't played. I know that you've been injured, but I don't get it. Poole, I thought, was going to be their second best player this season. He's not. Not even close.
I want to see,
Kuminga
like,
is an athletic freak, and granted, he had a great block versus Zion Williamson yesterday, but it wasn't good either. I mean, the result overall wasn't good. It was a good block. I will give him credit for that. It was good. There's that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm dead, man. So a producer goes away from the solo shot. Landon goes into, like, we need to zoom in on your face, and, like, I want to see a short form content of that rant. No, it's so, like, honestly, good luck to the Warriors. You know, like, a loss is a loss, dude. This isn't a team that can really afford to lose like this. So I think something needs to happen. But I do want to talk about, you know, speaking of starters and speaking of teams and everything like that, an interesting list came out this week, and these tier lists, man, they're a dime a dozen, right? Everybody makes up with them. Phases was hilarious to me. Like, the first time they did it, everybody was in B tier and all. It was weird. Nobody was in S tier at all. There was one team in A. It was really awkward. But there was an interesting one that I did want to highlight, you know, and so basically Easy Mac, who works with Breaking Points and with Phase, like, went to all of the coaches. 2 coaches per team voted. And basically they voted on all the other 11 teams. You couldn't vote for yourself. And you got points for every place from first all the way down to 12th. And I find it interesting that even the tier list and the one that we looked at from Ben J. Nassim last week was drastically different than what the coaches came up with. And one thing that isn't on the screen here, but if you're listening and if you're watching, I want to highlight, is that LA Thieves and Atlanta FaZe were the only 2 teams over 100 points. LA Thieves had 112, and the total possible was 121. So they only had a few teams that didn't put them first, and that's how they didn't get, you know, 121 points. So they got 112 points. Atlanta FaZe had 100. Besides those 2 teams, the next top team was the Toronto Ultra with 77. Minnesota Rocker tied with 77. So as you're looking at this list, Minnesota Rocker and Toronto Ultra coaches, after scrimming these teams, scored them the same. The next team was the Vegas Legion, rated 5th by the coaches in the CDL with 75 points, 73 points for Surge, 72 points for OPTIC. Interesting that OPTIC was 7th, because when FaZe did this tier list, they put OPTIC like 3rd. And what I find that's interesting is that there's a whole group from 3rd place all the way down to 7th that are in the 70-point range. They're really close to each other, like 5 points apart. Like it could have been Minnesota Rocker actually got voted number 1 by some team. Toronto Ultra got voted number 1 by 2 teams. Vegas Legion got voted number 2 by a couple of teams. And so it's interesting that it landed that way. And then you have the Subliners and the Boston Breach that are 8th and 9th with 60 points. And then it skips all the way down to the 30s for Florida and the Gorillas. And this is so I do want to call out some things that worried me from looking at this, right? Like the Gorillas are 33 points, the Florida Mules are 35, and the London Royal Ravens with a whopping 13, which means they were voted last place by every coach except one put them in 11th instead of 12th. And so, like, I'm worried, I'll be honest, about the Gorillas. We rated them a lot higher, Landon, when we did when we were looking at Ben Nassim's list. Ben Nassim rated them higher as well. Everybody was high on them from the outside, but it sounds like in scrimming, a lot of people are saying this team was made to basically have a new team next year. Like there's this rumor that it's like this team was made so that Alec can pick up whoever he wants for his next 2 years at LAG. And so they kept the players that they had, maybe because they were under contract and they could get them cheap. I know Hook is not a player that's about the money. Spart probably is not going to be about the money. He just wants to stay in the league. You know, like Neptune, I don't know, but he probably wants to stay in the league. So they probably were able to get away with something cheap this year. Maybe they'll do trades. But I will be honest, Landon, 11th place for that team, I'm worried. I'm really worried about Alec taking a lot of L's this year and not looking forward to that because that's not something I wanted for him. Very excited for the LA Thieves being placed well above everyone else. That means everybody that scrimmed them has put them number 1, basically. Every single team has put them number 1 or number 2. Happy that the Toronto Ultra are up high because I had them up high, and I know I said that they were one of those 4 teams that's going to be at the top at the end. My 2 other surprises is Minnesota Rocker being tied with Toronto for 3rd in the entire league based on scrims. We've seen the Minnesota do this before, though, so they got to do it on land, right? But who on that team has not played at least 50 to 100 LAN events, you know, or not events, but matches, I'll say, you know, like think about those players who hasn't played that much, maybe Afro, right? So it's like, then my last surprise is OPTIC Texas. I'm shocked that they're middle of the pack, lowest of the 70-point teams based on scrims. And I would say that is not where this team even remotely wants to be. Curious your thoughts. I know you're not the hugest fan of tier list, but curious your thoughts on what the coaches came back with in terms of the tiers for these teams.
Yeah, I would say, like, first off, tier lists, as we know, are not perfect. And while I do feel like coaching tier lists are something that you should absolutely consider, it's something that you, without a doubt, need to like actually look at. If you are an analyst, if you're someone who is interested in the CDL next season, absolutely, because these are the guys who are playing, who are watching, who are seeing the results of their teams and experiencing all these things. So I will say that you should absolutely take this result and actually take something from it, which is what we're doing right now. I will also say, before I talk about my most big surprises from this list, the list will not be perfect. The list is not perfect. So that also taking into account that teams have had problems scrimmaging. So this also is not going to be the most accurate result because there have been issues with the game. So these may not be as fine-tuned as they should be. When I watched Atlanta FaZe's video, which again, I think it was a little older probably than when these results came out, there was a lot of teams where it was like, yeah, we played them once. We played them one time and they were really good. I think that team's actually going to be pretty good. Let's go and put them in A. Let's go and put, I think that team's going to be good. I don't know if it's necessarily like, hey, let's judge them based off of how we have played them. And I'm wondering how much of it is also based off of where we think that team is going to be. Hey, I heard that, you know, X team had a really hard time versus this roster. I think they're actually pretty good too. Like, you know, we did maybe beat them in map count, but that one map that they took, that was pretty good. That's the way that I also look at these lists as well, is that obviously they're not going to be perfect. Is it a good list to look out for? 100%. But considering the scrimmage time, considering the way that teams and coaches are evaluating this, I don't know, you know, I guess exactly how to grade it 100%. Now, I would say the biggest surprises for me when it comes down to this list I would say first off, for sure, is LAG maybe being as low as they were or as low as they are right now. Again, I feel like that team has made a lot of investments, right? They already announced the fact that it's a 3-year contract with Arcities and for Spart. There was a lot of people who said it's almost too weird of a change for them to not have something up their sleeve. And I still do believe that. This is still a very hungry roster, and I don't think that this team is going to settle for low finishes. That isn't to say that to start off the year, there could be a change that has to happen, and then maybe something ends up upgrading over time. This is also an interesting title that has to be considered as well. From the VOD that I have watched, from the research that I've done based off of the maps, which I feel like is more than a lot of people. Very rotation heavy on a lot of maps, and based off of what a lot of people are talking about, ARs are what you need to look out for. So if we're talking about, different teams, maybe you would rank teams a little higher if you feel like their ARs are stronger. If we're talking about a Las Vegas Legion, which again, judged by a lot of people right now, their ARs are the best players, the SMGs are not. Well, maybe that's the reason why we have Las Vegas as high as we would. Also, I would personally rank teams who I feel like are going to be very good strategically wise right now off the start of a game. Typically, that's always a good and a safe bet to go with. And it feels like in this team, with a high TTK, with, again, a lot of hills, and we're talking about hardpoint especially, which is what we can judge the easiest. A lot of it is very punishing if you're not rotating early. And I feel like teams who are getting caught off guard by that, considering the way the spawn system works right now, which isn't perfect, but it's a lot of diagonals. It's a lot of very quick having to calm the right things. Like, it's literally a matter of sometimes looking a certain direction versus looking another direction, and that decides how a hill plays. So I will say, with all those things considered, LAG definitely surprises me. I don't know. Like, I definitely get the hype around Vegas. I am interested to see how that team does once we actually get to land. Like, I think in the first few matches, they could actually have some solid results. However, I don't know if I would have them as high as top 5. I think that OPTIC will be a little low, because I just think that team at the beginning of a year is always going to be better, and whatnot. So I think that OPTIC would probably be higher. I am a little surprised that they are as low as they were. I thought they'd probably be in top 4, top 5 minimum. And then I don't know, like, I am a little surprised that Minnesota is as high as they are. I will say all the things that I talked about, I feel like that team actually, based off the meta, will actually be very good. I think communication wise, they should be in a really good spot as well. So it's not as if I don't think that Minnesota fits this game well. Based off the things that I've heard in scrimmages, I did not know that they would be listed as tied for 3rd. So that is also something to think about. Also, the last thing that I will say, I'm very interested to know how slim the margins are between S and A. Now, I know we have the points that we could look at, but I am interested to know, because it feels like all the scrimmages that I've watched, which is probably, I don't know, a super small margin. I've been watching Thieves and I've been watching FaZe dominate a lot of teams. And I am curious how big the drop-off is between S and A right now. Which again kind of leads us to a very stacked A group, because it feels like a lot of people are like, yeah, this team's pretty good. This team's played us well. Maybe we had a better victory versus New York and Boston, all this stuff. I am curious, to see how high that the S tier teams are in comparison to the others right now.
It's interesting because between Toronto Ultra and LA Thieves, you're looking at 35-point difference, which is astronomical. The only next gap that's that big is Boston Breach to Florida Mutineers. So it's like there's top 9 that are clear, and then there's a bottom 3 that are, horrible. And probably the Ravens is in part because they haven't scrimmed anybody enough, and when they do, they're just really, really bad. But between Toronto Ultra and Atlanta FaZe is still 23. So, like, in my opinion, there is what they're saying, what the coaches came back, if we can have any takeaways from this, right? What the coaches came back saying is that there is a clear upper echelon in the league this year, and it's the LA Thieves and Atlanta FaZe. This is just coming into it. We'll see what happens on LAN, right? But coming into it, and probably on December 2nd, when the league starts, this is what we're going to see, right? Is that these two teams are going to be Atlanta FaZe and whoever else is normally with them every year, whether it's Toronto Ultra or the Dallas Empire, rest in peace to the Empire, or OPTIC, whoever it is that's up there with FaZe. This year, it's the LA Thieves. For the LA Thieves to be 12 points even above FaZe impresses me, because we haven't seen a team come into the next year outside of FaZe, really, with that much dominance coming back into the next year. And I'm not saying that we wouldn't call them dominant. I'm saying that they are actually like showing up on the sticks, because they're definitely scrimming. FaZe is definitely scrimming.
Yeah.
Toronto and Minnesota are definitely scrimming. And so to me, I'm looking at this giant group of 5 teams from Texas to Toronto that's all within 5 points of each other.
Yeah.
But there is a huge 20 and 30 point gap, like you said, from that group to the A group.
Right. It's just interesting that like you have those teams that are so similar, because again, you're going to have certain teams that play well versus these teams in terms of the A group. You're going to have some results where you lose. And the fact that you have S as high as they are based off of coaches, that means that I would say every team is struggling versus those rosters in some regard. And if there is that level of consistency, that oftentimes will actually reflect when we come down to actual matches. Again, last year in Vanguard, I was hearing that sometimes Paris was beating Atlanta FaZe, for God's sake. I didn't believe it. Paris would turn up on match day and they looked horrible. And it was like, what in the world happened 24 hours ago in comparison to what we saw here? So again, something you have to take into consideration. However, at the start of a title, I just feel like from what I've seen from LA Thieves and from Atlanta FaZe, most of the time it has been dominance, or at least it has been very well structured gameplay. That is something that I will say, that I actually did watch the scrimmage. I won't say who they were playing, but I did watch the scrimmage from LA Thieves earlier today. Wasn't super current, but it was a recent scrimmage. And one thing that really impressed me was the coordination on the map. You can tell they're very well studied, and that is something that I think a lot of people were curious about. You know what? Are they going to be fat and happy, right? Are they cool that they just won last season and they're going to roll into this year and be like, yeah, we're all good. You know, we're going to, like Atlanta FaZe, for example, they came in, they won, they were dominant in Cold War. They came into Vanguard, didn't really like the game a whole lot, and we saw what happened. Same thing for LA Thieves. A lot of people saying, hey, Modern Warfare 2 is not my favorite game. So if they had that same mentality, they just won, could you see the same effect? At least from what I've seen so far, not at all the case. And the fact that they sit this high in the coaching polls tells a lot. It really does. And it's interesting, Kingdom, that what it would mean for the LA Thieves, and we don't have to talk about this now. It could be, something for next episode.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting what a victory would mean for the LA Thieves if they won 3 events in a row across 2 titles. That would actually be very, very impressive. Something that I'm sure only a very small number of teams have ever been able to do.
Crimson.
Yeah, like what that would mean for this roster, what it would mean for the Thieves organization as a whole. Like that would be a next level type of thing. Like we actually might remember this roster in COD history, not just because they won champs, but if they go back to back and end up winning the first event of this season.
Wow. You mentioned the Thieves in COD history. I'd love to see it.
Yeah,
I think
you have to.
Last year's,
they already went back to back, and if they come in, they
have to do it in
a row.
Yeah,
right. That's like the only team who's ever won 3 in a row, or like won, games.
I
like
guarantee
that,
you, some cold
Atlanta FaZe
team, some Aches team has done that in the past.
I'm saying in CDL. It's been
Atlanta
FaZe.
Okay, got you. Okay,
we're gonna remember Atlanta FaZe for a very long time. I'm not saying that LA Thieves have done the same things that Atlanta FaZe have done. They haven't had that unbelievably dominant season. But if we're talking about a span of time and how difficult it is to translate from one game to the next, again, legendary stuff.
Facts.
Legendary stuff. They were able to do that.
That is, and shout out to Coach Cap, right? Speaking of teams doing legendary stuff, we cannot have an episode of Under One Roof without talking about the Lakers or LeBron
It's
James.
impossible.
So
it's impossible.
Obligatory LeBron James mention is coming. Please be prepared, viewing audience and listening audience. LeBron has sat out 4 games, and the Lakers haven't done too bad, but there's one of their players that has done exceptionally well, and I do not think he was performing at this level with LeBron on the court. Want to ask you, Landon, AD, 24, 37, 38, 30, and 18. Like, he's been killing it. The first Laker with back-to-back 30-point games I don't remember how long it was. It was like since Shaq or something.
Yeah.
I saw a statistic about it, but it was like back in, who cares what the date was, but a long time ago, right? Curious, from you, can this be replicated when the King gets back on the court?
Yeah, like it can be. I don't know. The way that I look at this is it's just possibly one more barrier between the Lakers deciding on if they should make a change or not, which I'm just totally opposed to. I think that they should make the move. They need to make the big move. Because again, you know what? This is a great little splash that we're having you know, in the early stages of the season where the Lakers go on to win a few games in a row, and, you know, we're starting to see Anthony Davis play well. Why? Because he has to. He's the first option. You know, we're seeing Lonnie Walker step up, you know, all these things. Like I said, it's a smokescreen. Like, it really is. Like, we're gonna sit here and talk about how LeBron's been sitting out for the last few games and the Lakers are starting to play well and all this stuff. They played the Kings. Granted, they did play the Nets. They played the Pistons and they played the Spurs. Like, come on. Like, this isn't anything. It's not. This isn't anything. Like, I'm happy that Anthony Davis is playing well. You know what? Awesome. However, my problem is with Anthony Davis long term. I'm not worried about a 5-game stretch, even a 4-game stretch. Which they're getting ready to play the Suns tonight. That's actually going to be a very, very big game that we won't be able to react to. And that would maybe change the tone of the conversation slightly. However, I don't know. I feel like maybe at the most that this would do is honestly just make possibly Russell Westbrook, but especially Anthony Davis, look that much better as trade pieces if you are the Lakers. Now, again, does this 4-game stretch make you feel so much better about Anthony Davis? The fact that you want to keep him, I think you either are in or you're out. I don't think that these last few games, despite how well that he has played, which he deserves all the props in the world for, I would hope that for the Lakers, this 4-game stretch, and would be 5, once, you know, depending on how the result goes versus the Suns, I would not make that basis on whether or not we change up our entire strategy and the future of our franchise. I don't think it's worth that.
Wow. I want to know what this big move you're talking about. Like, who, because Anthony Davis, I don't know if you saw Brandon Ingram go off, but like AD to me reminds me of Brandon Ingram, where Brandon can be very good when no one else is being very good. And I hate to say that, you know, but it's like, for some reason, when AD is not the guy, I mean, we saw the same problem with Kyrie Irving. Like,
yeah,
when he's not the guy, for some reason, he doesn't have the same amount of will on the court. It is the weirdest, like, and I don't understand. So I'm curious when you say this big move, right? You're talking about trading him, I'm guessing, and Russell, and who's the trade?
I don't know if I have like a trade in mind specifically. I know a lot of people have floated around the idea of like maybe Dame for AD. I don't know if the Trailblazers would make that move. I would be very surprised if they did, to be honest, but that is a move that people have floated around. I really don't know what the trade pieces would be. I know Russell Westbrook was tossed around in a rumor. I forget who, it might have been SB Nation, who I first saw reporting on it. I don't know if they were the originator of it or not. But apparently, just days before the Spurs game, the Lakers were actually in trade talks about dealing Russell Westbrook to the Spurs for a first-round pick and for Josh Richardson and Doug McDermott. So, like, I think that the Lakers are clear in terms of their plan. You know what? This is a flash in the pan. Is it a great moment right now that the team is playing best without their leader? Absolutely. Like, it's great. We're not taking anything away from that. But like I said, I think that the Lakers have to make a decision. If you're going to get rid of Russell Westbrook, like I said, I understand the strategy of maybe trying to keep him for a little bit longer so that when teams do decide to officially tank, there are better set pieces available. I feel like they've been awkwardly stingy on a lot of things, so it does make me feel like maybe the Anthony Davis thing doesn't happen if we're being very difficult about getting Russell Westbrook out of the lineup. I mean, getting a huge piece like Anthony Davis out of the way would also be pretty difficult as well. I don't know. I do feel like long-term, the best move for the Lakers is to hit the reset. It is to get rid of AD. It is to get rid of Russell Westbrook. Not because of what we don't know they can do, but you have to get rid of them when they're at their peak. And I feel like stock right now is high for AD. Stock is getting better for Russell Westbrook. But if this team actually wants to win a finals, it's not going to be with this team. And I know everybody's talking about, oh, they can get better. They can get better. No, they can't. They cannot get better. They have to do something if they want to actually, like, contend. So it's like, are the Lakers happy with having LeBron make it to the first round of the playoffs or be in the play-in game? Then keep the same roster. If you want them to make it maybe a little farther, get rid of Russell Westbrook. If you want to take a chance on possibly having a good team long-term, which again, it's a risk, but I feel like you absolutely have to take it at this point. I feel like you're cutting your losses, or rather, you're almost making the worst decision by just letting this stale out and nothing ends up happening. That's what I would say is the big move. It's not anything in specific, but it's just the idea of getting AD and Westbrook out of there.
I feel you on that one. And I agree. I hate to say it, man. This team isn't built to win. It's not going to happen. I think the Warriors have a better shot with the roster they've built. They just got to figure out how to get it together, but they probably are going to need trades too. I like what you said about them, like using this game they just played to figure out who we're going to drop, who we're going to keep. I never ever thought about that they're marketing AD right now, and that is honestly pretty smart, especially if they're man enough to be like, "Hey, AD, we might trade you. Play well these next couple of games because LeBron's going to sit out." You know, like who knows if that happened, right?
That
but it's
work,
like,
but
I don't think that would work well. But honestly, like, he has that Brandon Ingram swag, but Brandon Ingram couldn't play with LeBron either. You know, and it's sad because I watch players like that. Like, man, I can't. I mean, I know you felt it too, Landon, when Kyrie asked to be traded and to leave the Cavs, and LeBron was like, "What are you doing? We could have gone to another 5 finals together.
I don't know about 5, but
do it by myself.
Yeah.
Peace out. You know, I'm going to get another chip. I'm going to go back to the finals and play against the Warriors without you. It doesn't matter. You know, like, and it's unfortunate. Kyrie could not get to the finals without LeBron. He can't get to the finals without him. Like, it's like before he had LeBron, couldn't even get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And then LeBron shows up in town and it's like, "Hey, let's go to the finals." Year after year after year after year. And then you leave, and guess what? Now your life is full of drama. You're one of the most storied and dramatic players in the history of the league. Like, and it's hard. Like, I can't even keep up with the Kyrie story. So,
like, I feel like the Lakers are the meme right now. I don't know if everybody's seen like the Simpsons meme where it's like, I forget the name of the Simpsons character, where he's in the back of the bus and it's like, "Chuckles, I'm in danger." Like, that's really where they are right now. Like, they actually don't 100% know what to do, and that's the worrisome part. Like, it really is worrisome that, like, we're hearing rumors, but they're such small rumors. Like, getting Josh Richardson and Doug McDermott from the Spurs, that's not going to solve anything. Like, does that help your depth? Yes, obviously it does, but that's not the long-term move. That's not a big decision. And I feel like the Lakers have yet to really prove to anybody, but specifically to the guy that they are supposed to be proving this to, the guy that actually extended. Thank you very much.
Yes, Ralph Wiggum.
Oh, it's Ralph.
Yes.
Okay, I was 100% sure. But they haven't proven to anybody, specifically the guy that they're supposed to be entitled to right now, that they are willing to go all in. And that is going to be the continuous problem. And like I said, I thought this could be actually a negative thing for the Lakers, possibly, is if they're like, "Oh, well, Anthony Davis is playing well. Let's maybe keep Anthony Davis." It's like, yes, but the whole point is the fact that he doesn't last for super long. Like, 4 games is great, 5 games even, awesome. But this isn't the solution.
You're not going to get a season out of him.
It's going to be another barrier.
The only guy.
Yeah,
he has to be
another barrier.
Anthony Davis reminds me of Kyrie, where I think he honestly would rather go be the superstar and be like Kevin Durant before he joined his big 3, you know, like, or Chris Bosh or any of these guys, himself on the Pelicans. Like, just, he wants to go and just win games and be the number 1 guy and be one of the leading scorers and go to every All-Star game and be defensive player of the blah, 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 but doesn't want to do the hard work of playing a role and maybe letting LeBron call the ball. And you know what? Unfortunately, when a guy has been to 10 finals and won one 2 years ago and basically carried AD, like, you can't, like, to look at that guy and be like, "I got this," you know, it's not going to work. So
no, it's you know, not a good spot.
Speaking of giant big men that used to play for the Lakers, maybe that'll be AD in the near future. I do want to mention, I got to mention it, right? Dwight Howard has his debut game in Taiwan. And I don't know if you saw Landon, but he had a lot of stuff to say and how disrespectful he thought it was that he wasn't in the NBA.
Yeah.
Like
saw that on
he just was like, "This is so disrespectful." Like, and he's great, and he was a good player. And honestly, when people have been like, "Hey, what are you going to do if you're the Lakers, blah, blah, blah," I was like, well, if they get rid of AD, they still need that hardcore defense. And so maybe they throw Dwight Howard into the mix. This guy, 38 points, 25 rebounds, 9 assists, 4 blocks, and 2 3-pointers. He's got 22 in his whole career. He dropped 2 3-pointers in this game. And I'll be honest, he was a bully. I saw one play where he just pushed a young, tiny dude to the ground, like, and then literally left his hand out and was like holding the ball and just passed it. But he just like pushed the guy down on the ground. He also whined a lot. He was complaining to his coach. Like, calling plays and saying stuff. They were down by like 20 for a lot of the game. They were down by 11 going into the fourth. And then Dwight Howard just decided, I'm going to go off, And the funniest thing about this game, though, to me, Landon, number one, GG's Dwight. Like, good job. I'm really happy for him. I don't know if this means, maybe if he continues this kind of stuff, he'll get back in the league. That was 3 days ago. I think they've won 2 and they've lost 1 since then. But what I thought was funny is that because he's the only like giant on the court, and he's this big dude, like he was actually trying to do crossovers and stuff. And it was worth laughing at. If you haven't seen it, it's worth going to watch. Like he would like dribble up and try to cross somebody over and couldn't control the ball, so it would just go flying into the air. Like it was actually hilarious. But I think that Dwight Howard was one of the best big men to play our game.
Yeah.
People, they asked Shaq about this already because, he hates that this guy called himself Superman and the other people called him Superman. He's like, there's only one Superman in the history of the NBA. That's me, Shaq, But I will say, I am glad that NBA players have a route like this, that they have something else they can do, that they have somewhere else they can go play. I wish that the Call of Duty League had another paid league. And I don't know, do challengers have salaries?
Like, I don't know all the details of that. What I do know is that if organizations are like representing players, they do get something. So it's like if you are repping an organization, I would say those players are getting some level of compensation, probably flights, and I would imagine maybe something.
Yeah, it's probably not close to the league, but a little change every month
not
to keep
close
you happy.
To the league. Yeah.
So, and that's where I like that these guys can go make,
yes, exactly,
50, 60, $70,000, $80K a year, probably for Dwight a little over 100. Maybe he's making 6 figures, but because they filled the stadium and everybody during the whole entire game is just holding their phones up, like, they're just videotaping him, everything he does. And I saw everybody imitating his free throws. He was making free throws. Like, I was impressed. I honestly was impressed. Why don't you just get your thoughts, Landon?
Yeah, like, okay, I'll say this. I have 2 different point of views on this. I'm not sure if people are looking at this result and being like, the NBA missed out. Like, look at this. Dwight Howard just pull up the numbers again. Can we have the numbers really quick again? Dwight Howard's hitting 3-pointers now. 38 points, 25 rebounds, 9 assists, 4 blocks. Dwight Howard, ladies and gentlemen, has turned into Wilt Chamberlain. And we've missed out. No, that's obviously not what's happening here. Like, this is a great moment for Dwight. And I honestly think this is perfect for him. Literally. Like, NBA is over, unfortunately. I really like Dwight a lot. I think that he definitely should be in the NBA this year. He's definitely not putting up 35 and 20 plus rebounds. Just not going to happen. But I do think this is a great route for him, right? He is an entertainer. He's hilarious. I think that a great route for him at some point is to actually go like the Batista route, like go to the WWE, try to be in movies, all of those things. I think that Hollywood looks great on him, not just in the Lakers uniform. So I think that this is a great opportunity for him. He's going to make all kinds of fans. He's going to sell out stadiums. He's going to have a great time because basketball is now much easier than it's ever been. And I think he's going to have a good time. Like, I think this is good for him. I think this is a great route for other players. I think Dwight Howard's using this a little bit different than other players would. Sometimes this is an opportunity. This is a route where retired good players go, to go and play. Sometimes this is where players like, again, who remembers Jimmer Fredette, by the way, an unbelievably talented player. He ended up going over to overseas and is dropping like 70 points on occasion in some of these games and is unbelievably famous across the pond. This is a good route. I agree. I couldn't agree more. I think this is a great route. It's a good moment for Dwight Howard. I think this is a great career move for him. This is also not a good look for the Lakers based off the podcast that he was on with Shannon Sharp on his podcast, where he talked about how Kurt Rambis, who is one of the major playmakers at the Los Angeles Lakers, basically said, listen, you're no longer Dwight Howard anymore. And he was like, oh, okay. Like, it didn't make the Lakers look good. That's the only way that I would say this doesn't make the Lakers look good. I hope that people don't look at this result and are like, we're missing out on 24 rebounds a game. What do we do? It doesn't work that way.
Dude, aren't they missing out on 15? Like, you know, when I think about Dwight Howard, it's like he has.
Did you see the people he's rebounding against?
No. So you're right, but
the
here's
same.
the deal. But even in the NBA, Dwight Howard should be able to just literally go on the court, and I think he did this in 2020, in my opinion. Like that was his goal: get rebounds and just have a defensive presence, and even commit fouls, because that is also something that he's good at doing. And if I had Dwight Giant Man Howard, because he's still athletic, he can still jump very high. He can still he was getting some good blocks, even though they were on little people. I would say that Dwight Howard, if he can get me a consistent 12 rebounds, even if it's only like 8 points.
12 rebounds is a lot. That's like leading the NBA. That's like top 5 in rebounding in the NBA.
Well, he's not going to get 12 rebounds a game.
He's gonna have to start.
His only job, yeah,
he's going to have to start, though, to get that. And he can't start.
Yeah, he can't start. He's not a
starter. I trust me, I totally get what you're saying. Like I said, does Dwight Howard still belong in the NBA? Yes. I think that's fair. I think the problem is that Dwight Howard wants to be Dwight Howard, and a lot of these teams are like, honestly, man, like, we appreciate that. We really need you to be this guy instead. The Lakers basically said that straight to his face. Verbatim.
They need him to be like JaVale McGee, right?
Exactly. And JaVale McGee's a great player. I don't think, I don't know if Dwight Howard's as good as JaVale McGee at this point in his career. That's my personal opinion. JaVale McGee is very underrated. Very underrated. Okay? Let's get that straight. All right? Two people
I
that
agree
Shaq,
with you, but
small world. Two people that Shaq absolutely hates. JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard, we just compared them to each other.
Why does he hate JaVale McGee?
It's a long story. Just check out Shaq and a Fool season 1, and you will get all the information that you need. Really quick, we talked about Dwight Howard for a long time because our producer has these graphics ready. Let's go and take a look at the CDL team custom jerseys that have been announced. We're going to speed roll through this very, very quickly. Yes, we're going to end that the podcast. We've got to talk about these final few subjects, and we're going to get out of here. We're going to speed run these as fast as possible. So, CDL has announced, or rather the teams have announced, their new jerseys moving into next season. Now, previously, they have been more of a certain style. They've been in a very similar format to each other. A lot of people have gone out there and said, you know what, not a lot of opportunity to customize jerseys of old, as you see here. It's kind of been a logo, sponsor in the top right, sponsor in the top left, with a, thank you, producer, with like a little, I don't know what you'd call that, rectangle full of some cool stuff, whether it's something rocker related, or if it's some fins, if you're the Florida Mutineers, or something octopus related. I don't know. Now you can see the different jerseys. There's some customization opportunities. And now quickly, we're going to talk about the new jerseys. Kingdom, your reaction to the fact that we now have custom jerseys, and which one is your favorite based off of the ones that you've seen?
Mutineers is my favorite, hands down. I really do like the rocker one. I think it's clean. And the Gorillas one is sick. Like,
Gorillas one's disgusting. Cool. Yeah.
The rocker one, this picture does not do it justice, guys. Go look at the posts on socials, because the blue things on the side would be on the side of your body. So from the front, you just see this like purple glowing jersey. But the Mutineers one is absolutely disgusting. Gorillas, like, this looks really
disgusting in a good way.
LA,
right? That's what you mean.
Yes,
disgusting
in a good way.
Okay.
Sorry, it's gross. It's disgusting. No, but it's like it's cool. I like it, and I like the LA that you can see in the background, and I like the lettering. If we want to talk about some ones that have not taken a far leap forward, FaZe, Breach, and even LA Thieves, like
FaZe. Okay, I gotta say
okay,
this.
Look, they got the little
list,
they've got the little.
If we're doing a tier list, FaZe is above Boston and Thieves.
Sure, because FaZe has a little bit of decoration in there.
Yeah, it has.
Thieves does too, but you can't see it. This is like, we took a black shirt that said Boston Breach on it, and we needed to make it unique, so we put a little X on the. Luckily, they have something on the back, and I don't think a lot of the other jerseys have anything on the back. Neat is the right word. Oh, I didn't know there was a picture with both front and back. Ooh, spicy. This is nice. And you can tell producer Matt, I thought it was hilarious when he was showing the old jerseys, was like shaking them because he was raging from their simplicity. The Thieves one, like, it's a checkerboard that you can't really tell.
Okay, let's be honest. Let's not walk around this. LA Thieves, what happened?
Yeah.
What happened, Thieves? I was
Somebody stole the designs from them.
S tier, no question. And this is sadly the worst one out of the bunch so far.
It's sad.
It is. I almost
They
wanna
couldn't
believe
even
this
put
isn't-
red on the sleeves. They didn't even put like Rocker and
that's why
Mutineers had like
Boston's-
colors on the sleeves. There's no colors on the sleeves.
That's why Boston's is better. Boston has a little color on the sleeve. Thieves went full black with red logo and then the same logo in the top left corner. I'm surprised. This looks like their CDL skin in real life.
Oh, yikes.
Okay, I'm not like hating on it. Would I wear it? Yes, I would wear any CDL team jersey. However, from the list that we have, honestly, I wouldn't mind it as much had Florida Mutineers not come out with theirs, which is just information everywhere. You know, would I wear the Florida Mutineers jersey? Absolutely, I would. Yes.
Yeah.
I would wear it right now, honestly, if we had it in person. But it feels like it has character. It has character to it. And that's the problem that I have with the other ones, is I feel like lacking character on some of these. Again, Minnesota, LAG, solid work. Atlanta FaZe, good. Boston, I expected a little bit more. LA Thieves, expected a lot more, considering the clothing brand history. All right, let's move forward after a little bit of frustration. 6 more teams to go, by the way. Update for next week.
I didn't even think about that. LA Thieves has the best merch.
Yes, that's the whole point.
Like,
that's the whole point.
Thieves merch that's their business.
It needs to feel like a pillow when you put it on. That's the way that it would rise.
Maybe it's the best feeling jersey.
That's what I'm saying. That's the only way it would be able to save.
Company, but you know.
All right, quickly. World Cup, by the way, started. This is just a very quick update for me. I'm going to be talking about the World Cup as often as we possibly can. USA 1-1 versus Wales. What happened? Literally, USA looked fantastic in the first half. We did. We looked excellent. I had British people telling me, US looks solid, right? We looked pretty good. And then we came into the second half and we looked absolutely exhausted. Wales, it's unfortunate. You know, we did end up allowing for Christian Bale to have a penalty in like the 85th minute or whatever it was. We were projected to win that game. Now it's going to be that much more difficult. We have England on Black Friday, by the way, which is also projected to be one of the most watched soccer or football games of all time. I highly suggest that you watch it when USA beats Harry Kane and England, and we celebrate on next episode if Kingdom is going to be here, which again is still a question mark as of this moment. However, big moment. Definitely check out the World Cup if you don't already watch it. I understand, may not be your favorite sport, especially if you're from the US. However, it is a very big event. It's the most watched sporting event that we actually have in the world. It is unbelievable. There are, like I said, there are 50 to 80,000 fans from every country that have traveled literally to see this. It's a really big deal. So I highly suggest that you check it out. There were some crazy losses today. Argentina lost to Saudi Arabia, and Argentina were the favorites. So that was a really big, or one of the favorites. It was a really big deal. So I highly suggest that you take a quick little gander at that. And then finally, we'll end it out on a positive note. A very popular YouTube video. We're talking about numbers, by the way. SWEATBANNIN from good old OPTIC Scumpy has officially hit 10 million views. What a video. I've watched this probably 5 times in my life, Kingdom. And I don't know. Yeah. So I'm a little surprised that this is the video that at the end of the day hits, you know, the mark that it does. But it is a good video.
It's Black Ops 2, dude. You know what hurt when I was watching this? Is I was just like, oh, this game was so fun. This is when me and Goalie met. This is when me and producer Matt met each other. And I was watching his little montages and videos he did on this. We played together. We used to play Kingdom 8s, and I would screw over everybody. Kingdom Warrior. But like, this game was so pure and so great. Like, I'm sitting there watching it and I'm just like, oh, I remember we used to get to watch this competitively. It was so wonderful. And it was so easy to understand. It was so easy to follow. And so I'm so thankful for people like you, Landon. I'm thankful for casters that can tell the story of the game. I'm not even lying, dude. Like, you know, looking at last year's game, everybody went into it thinking, "Oh, this game's garbage. How are we going to play this?" Blah blah blah. The pro players were complaining. Everybody's going crazy. That's why I'm not worried about this year either. Everybody's talking about all these things. There's bugs. We can't play. The mosh pit's gone. Whatever. Like, I feel bad for all these guys. Oh, we're going to play with the sniper, the smokes. You guys are going to do the good job. The CDL talent of making the game entertaining. That was a game where, without much casting, still would have been great. Like,
Yeah.
some of my greatest moments are the casters were involved. Like, Scumpy gets a 3-piece, and then you hear somebody screaming, "Scumpy goes big! Oh my gosh, Scumpy goes big!" And it's like, I have those moments in my head. Like, I can see Parasite lifting up the, thing when they won champs. Like, I honestly, like, that game was so epic. GG's to Seth. Some of my most watched videos are from that exact same era. And, like, the only other video I can think of that was similar to that one that I have watched almost as many times is Pomage had a video where he got like 99 kills or something with a sniper with no lethal streaks, and it was with a ballista sniper rifle on this game, and it was probably on the same map. I think it was disgusting. And so, like, I honestly I love Black Ops 2. I love Scump. I'm happy for the man that he got 10 million views on a video. And I did see, while Matt had the little widget open there on the side, that Scump also has passed 630 million views total on his channel. GG's to Scumpy.
Yeah, it's just a credit to the fact that we've really been watching this guy for as long as we have. He's been at the top of his game for as long as he has. The one thing that I will say is that while SWEATBANNIN is a great video, there is an OPTIC Scump video that I'm sure that you probably have not watched, or if you haven't watched it, it's been a very long time. And that is the video known as the best sniper live commentary ever. It is an unbelievable sniper montage with good old handsome Merc on the map Cove in Black Ops 2. That is your homework that you should watch before next week. It's an amazing video. Personally, my favorite OPTIC Scump Black Ops 2 video that currently exists. And it sits at, would you believe it, 1 million views. Just nobody's seen it. It's a diamond in the rough. When we talk about his Black Ops 2 content, you literally cannot find a Black Ops 2 video that it doesn't have at least 1 million or like 500,000. Like, it's impossible. It's gonna be, I can already tell that the wheels are turning in Kingdom's mind about content, about Black Ops 2, how great of a game it was. We need a game like that again. Anyway, we will move on and close out the podcast. Honestly, we debated on if we should have it this week. We weren't sure if we had enough topics to discuss, and I felt like we got our time in. Hour, 17 minutes. We try to aim for an hour, by the way.
One topic we could talk for this long.
It's true. Honestly, the tiers that we got into, and probably the nade on OPTIC Dynasty, you were really getting going about that one. I think that we could have talked about that one for a lot longer. But any closing comments? Thanksgiving, by the way, is probably happening for some people who watch this video. Anything that you're thankful for, Kingdom, before we do close out the show, and your closing regards maybe mixed in with it?
Honestly, gotta say, and give it, I'm thankful for my girlfriend. We are celebrating 2 years of dating this upcoming week, and I'm excited for that. Taking a little vacation, and life is not predictable, and it's been life-changing for me since, like, the pandemic and COVID and everything like that, and meeting somebody that's really cool, that gets me, and that, treats me nice and all that kind of stuff, like, and that lets me do these little podcasts, and, it's pretty cool. And so, shout out to my girlfriend. Very thankful for her and her 2 kids. And, of course, thankful for my little monsters, my 3 boys that I'll be hanging out with this weekend. And I'm thankful that even though I don't eat meat, there are still meals out there that are delicious.
Okay. That was a good way to summarize it, especially with Thanksgiving. I'm sure it's, a little bit of a treacherous waters,
sucks.
I would say. But, it is what it is. I will say I'm very thankful for many things. Thankful for my entire family. Thankful for my wife. Thankful for my new baby girl. We'll be experiencing her very first Thanksgiving when we talk about the next few days from now. So there's been a lot of excitement around it. We've been buying different outfits for her to wear. It's going to be a great time. We like to take lots of pictures of her, and I'm sure she's going to enjoy herself, even though no food will be indulged from her as of yet. We'll save that for a few years from now. Thankful for this podcast. Thankful for producer Matt for doing such a wonderful job.
Yay, Matt.
Thankful for the CDL. Thankful for COD. Thankful for lots of things. So let us know down in the comments, or if you're watching this video, tweet at us. Let us know. What are you thankful for And what do you want to see us talk about next time? We always like to discuss on this podcast the fact that we are a sports and esports podcast. We try to pride ourselves on doing both. Some people are afraid to talk about it. Some people are afraid to think that, hey, can these actually be talked about in combination with each other? Are there people who actually do watch both? And the answer to all those questions is yes. We are here to help try to pioneer that very concept that we feel so passionately about, as you were able to hear throughout numerous conversations. We talked about the Warriors. We talked about the Lakers. We talked about team jerseys in the CDL. We talked about a lot of things, Dwight Howard included, in those debates for a very long time, probably longer than we probably should have. However, it was a very, very good podcast episode. Thankful for all of you for watching this, and that is going to do it for episode 3 of Under One Roof. We'll be back next week. Who knows what date exactly, because we're all pretty busy right now, but we will be getting back to you guys very, very soon. Appreciate all the support on the podcast. The content will only keep coming. We'll see you later, guys, for episode number 4.